Intermediate product is the second method, is the first indirect method. And basically, you need market information. So when I talk about intermediate products, I'm thinking about goods and services that there is a market for. We estimate the value of these intermediate products to determine a proxy value on something that is not traded in the market. The best one I can think about is, it's either, well, fishing or hunting. You do have to pay a license amount, whatever that is these days, I don't know, fishing a long time. But the value of fishing to some people is a lot higher than that. What is a license anyway? Isn't it 25 bucks? Is that all? Okay, so somewhere in there. So you pay $25 to go fishing. Is that the cost of fishing? That's the cost of your license. What else do you have to do? What other outlays do you have to incur to fish?
You need a boat, fishing rod, get some bait.
Yeah, boat, rod, reel, maybe bait. I grew up fishing with just a spoon, right? In the north, you just stand on the side of the lake. You don't even need a boat because it just like drops off. It's just deep and cold. And so I worked for a little while in PA with Weyerhaeuser in Forestry Canada, and I wanted to go fishing all the time. And these guys said, "Oh, you got to use bait." It's like, bait? Bait stinks. So I get this bait, and I put it in my tackle box, go fishing, and whatever. A few weeks later, my mom comes to visit, and I said, "Well, let's go fishing." So I put the tackle box in the back of the truck, and she says, "There's something dead in here." And I said, "Ah, you're crazy. Your nose is frozen. You can't, whatever." So we're driving along, and all of a sudden, she's just complaining bitterly about this smell. And it smells kind of bad. It smells really bad, actually. So then it dawns on me, holy shit, I've got bait in the tackle box that's been in there for 100 years. So I open it up, and 9,000 flies zoom out, and they're just like zzz, flying all over the truck. And the whole thing is just maggots. It's just disgusting. And of course, she says, like, "I told you so." So, okay, boat, rod, reel, bait, travel, right? Costs some money to drive up to some of these big lakes. You might want to rent a cabin, you might want to camp, whatever.
And do you use nets?
Nets? I don't know, some people do, just to get the fish out of the water.
Just like
Yeah?
What about like admission to like regional parks and national parks?
Yeah, there could be fees associated with this, depending on where you want to fish. Yep. So when we're estimating the value of fishing, say fishing, the recreational value, we can measure the value of fish, right? You can go down to the market and look at what the fish cost, but that's the value of the product. What is the value of the recreation? So what we typically do is find out how much do people spend on these particular products and come up with some sort of value. The problem with this is, okay, so you buy a rod and a reel. How much do you attribute of the price of the rod and reel to the fishing? Like, you might use that same rod and reel for 10 years. So we would be overestimating if we added up all these values, the value of the boat. How many times, the number of times that you go fishing per year is going to make a difference in determining what to calculate.
What about if you use your boat for other activities?
That's the other thing, double counting. So you have to be careful when you're doing this kind of a study to determine what the percentage of time is that you use this boat, and how often or how long do you keep the rod and reel? How much maintenance do you put into this? If you're traveling, you might be traveling just for the whole camping experience, and you only fish a little bit. So there's problems in estimating any one of these for what the value is for the non-market value because of counting, of bias, of all kinds of problems.
Can't you find like a value for fishing? Because there's like fishing lodges and all sorts of stuff that you know, they've already kind of calculated all this, you know, it's $25 a day if you want to rent a boat or whatever, you know,
Yep.
and that's the value of the boat is, they're
Sure.
not making money off the boat, they're making money off the experience, but
Yep.
there already is a market for it.
Yep, that's a good point. When we talk about use value, right? And then there's some places where there's a market and then there's no market. And in some cases, if you want to measure the value of recreational fishing, and this probably would be lake specific or region specific, where there might not be a lodge or there might not be a commercial aspect to it, then if you don't have that market, it's really difficult to tell. So you would use a method like this. Or you could use CVM and ask people what they value. But you're right, there's a distinction though between the market for commercial fishing. Because we look at all the Americans that fly up and, I mean, that's big business. So, good point. For that, we have the price. People pay the price. Any other questions? Okay, the next one, indirect method, is hedonic pricing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look through the literature and find an example of each of these methods, and I'll post those papers, just so you can see how they're estimated, and there'll be lots of good math and stuff in there, but you'll see the point and the figures that they come up with at the end. So I'll do that for each of these methods. So hedonic pricing also requires market information. You need prices, okay? So we need prices to determine values. The same is kind of true, actually we could do both of these, hedonic pricing and choice experiments. A good way to think about this is think about real estate. Real estate transactions, you need transactions, have prices and attributes of particular goods. A friend of mine in the States estimated the value of, what was it, like trees, urban forestry. The value of a tree on somebody's property. So there's not really a market for that. You either buy a house or you don't, and it's got trees in the yard or it doesn't. So what he did was he had a whole list of real estate transactions. So the house price, you know, this one sold for $100,000, this one sold for $400,000. So this would be the transactions. And he had the characteristics of the houses. And through statistics, you can control for the characteristics, isolate the characteristic that you're interested in, and then you have the value. So his characteristics would have been, you get the size of the house, number of bathrooms, number of bedrooms, you know, all these things, all these variables that make a house either more or less valuable. You could have like good neighborhood, bad neighborhood, a whole variety of things. The other thing he had was the number of trees, the size of tree, and the type of tree. So oak tree, ash tree, whatever. So you can have dummy variables for that. So each house that sold would be, this one, let's say, was 1,000 square feet. This one's probably bigger, let's say 2,700 square feet. This one has 5 bathrooms, 5 bedrooms, you know, good neighborhood. This one's in a crap neighborhood. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, life's bad. We can also add, and I ran out of, my camera only goes to here, so I'm just going to erase a couple of these things. So we can have, you know, ash tree. Either it has an ash tree, 1, 2, oak tree, 0, 3,